On Patriots Playbook, attention up on John Rook brings the heat. Rain or storm, the Brady's throw to new stars rising. The playbook's so good, it's so mesmerizing. Enter the playbook, Patriots Playbook. Here's your host, John Rook, legend, voice of the New England Patriots. It's Patriots Playbook, la la la.
La, la, la. We're here for the playbook. Yes, we are. Welcome in. John Rook. Evan Lazar is here for first bit of the program. There is some news surrounding the New England Patriots that I think we need to talk about. There is also some reports within the local media that we probably need to talk about as well. And then obviously we're going to get to the fact that there's actually a football game to play here.
Is there?
Believe it or not, they're going to be back out on the field again this week against the Arizona Cardinals. 4 games left in the regular season. A chance to continue to work toward the goal of being at least as good, if not better, than where they were a year ago. And I know there are some people that say, "Whoa, wait a second. They're in a good position now draft-wise. Right now they're third for the draft next April. I don't want them to win anymore because I don't want to screw up that pick." Look, you've got to look bigger picture on this. And I think we all know that the Patriots' needs are definitive. So we got a ton of time to talk about that. But the first thing I want to jump to today has to do with sort of breaking news. And the breaking news is that former Patriots coach Bill Belichick is reportedly going to, or has been offered, the head coaching job at the University of North Carolina. I don't know how you feel about that. I know, Evan, you've got some thoughts on that I want you to share with us in a moment. But my initial reaction is why?
Yeah.
Why? Simply, and it's just one word, why? I was always of the opinion, based on what Bill had told me, had told our media, had said around the house, so to speak here, and I'm not letting anybody in on any secrets where this is concerned, that the Don Shula record was important to him. It's one of the reasons why he had to do things his way, because he felt like it was the best way to get there. And look, anybody in this business who's any good has an ego. You have to have an ego to survive in this business. It's what keeps you, going to sleep at night. Otherwise, you'd be awake and, you'd suffer for it. So the ego is what drives you. So you can't tell me that Bill doesn't care about the record. That's false. That's false. However, I'm guessing that in the year now that he's been away from football, again, this is just a supposition based on observation, on knowing him when he was here, being around him when he was here, being around this whole camp, if you will, for 20 years that he was here.
Yeah.
This is just an observation overall, my opinion of that observation. My guess is that he decided he missed coaching more.
Yeah.
Than potentially the record, because you can't tell me that at age 72 he's going to try to go to North Carolina for a year or two to prove himself again and find another job in the NFL. That is not going to happen. He's too old. I also think, and again, this is just my opinion, I also believe that, between him and his agent and people that he knows, and we all know Bill is very well connected still in professional football circles, that it didn't look good for anybody to step up and really hire him because Bill wants total control. Nobody, apparently right now, nobody's willing to give that to him. I know there were some thoughts maybe Jacksonville might. I know that's what was the hot rumor as of a week or two ago. Maybe that's cooled. And so he wants still to show that he can coach, and he desires to coach. And that's why I loved his quote-unquote manifesto that came out last week about, college ball today isn't really much different from the NFL. And you know what? He's actually right about this, because with NIL and money and everything, college football is a shorter, smaller, less moneyed version of professional football. It is pro football now, okay? And so if you're telling me that you can hire a staff that probably has a lot of NFL experience to come in, and you're going to pay the players because they're going to get NIL, and North Carolina being a huge school and big backers, I'm sure they got a bag to share with people, right? Share with players. How are you not going to be able to recruit? And I know Tom Brady and Gronk and Julian Edelman all had some funny things to say about Bill and potentially taking the job at North Carolina. We'll play that for you in a second here. But if you haven't heard it, it's actually pretty good. So, and I know that that's out there. But at the same time, if you really want to coach and you feel like you can bring your operation, so to speak, to the college ranks to recruit some of the elite of the elite. If money is not an issue, then you bring in these guys to be trained by professionals. Are you telling me that the North Carolina Pro Day next year isn't going to be swarmed with scouts? Of course it is. And if I'm a college football player or I'm a recruit and I really want to go to the NFL and I see this forming in North Carolina, I'm telling you, hey, the Tar Heels are on my radar. If they weren't before, they are now.
Yeah, I think there'll be certain guys that will be like that. I think there are other guys that probably, frankly, in today's climate, don't want to be coached as hard as Bill Belichick is going to coach them.
That's the downside.
And I think that exists too. I personally have no concerns or doubts that Bill Belichick will do a great job coaching football. Like, he's Bill Belichick. He's going to be a great football coach. He's going to do a good job down there. I think the more fascinating part of the story to me is that he seems to have been shut out by the NFL. And why the greatest coach of all time, who hung 6 banners in this stadium right down the hall, is unable to get back in at the NFL level. And I think it's two things. I think one, which is probably the most important thing, is the politics of the organizational hierarchy that you were just talking about. It's not just the fact that he wants control of the football operations. Bill Belichick wants control of the building. And there are organizations, the way that these organizations are made, there's a hierarchy. There is coach, general manager, then usually team president, and then usually owner. And I go down to Atlanta because that's just the closest that Bill's gotten so far getting back into the NFL. And the problem down there was Fontenot, they had a general manager. McKay, they had a team president. And then you get up to Arthur Blank. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it was the guys in between, the coach and Arthur Blank, that vetoed Belichick, because they're looking at it and they're saying, well, if we hire Bill Belichick, what's my job going to look like in a year? He's going to muscle me right out of here. The owner wants him. Like, clearly the owner wants him. So, if I'm Terry Fontenot, their general manager, if I'm Rich McKay, their team president, I believe he's president is his title there in Atlanta, you don't necessarily want the tycoon, the power that is Bill Belichick in that building, because you want yours. You want to get your beak wet and all of these things.
Right.
So I look at that as a big part of it from a political standpoint. You look at a team like the Chicago Bears, who need a head coach. They're going to have Ryan Poles, their general manager. They're going to have a team president, and then they're going to have an owner. Mm-hmm. And it's like you have to get all these people to be willing to cede power to Bill Belichick, and that's just very
not going to happen.
It's very unlikely.
And I think he learned that,
which
is why he's decided to take this different route. I want you to listen in, because it's a little amusing, but these guys know Bill Belichick as well as anybody. Take it with a grain of salt for what it is, because it's obviously, it's for entertainment purposes, right? But I want you to listen to what they're saying, and then consider putting Bill, let's say, in the living room of an 18-year-old kid, and what's really going to be said there. All right, so this is Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, and I believe it came from Brady's Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. But it was for them on Fox, I believe, originally.
On
all right?
Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, so here's what they said to say.
Bill Belichick is actually interviewing for college jobs? Can you imagine him coaching college?
No.
Absolutely not.
I think there's a lot of things he could do, and obviously he's tremendous, and even showing his personality. But getting out there on the recruiting trail and dealing with all these college kids, that would be.
Could you imagine
with NIL?
Could you imagine Bill
nonsense?
on a couch
Listen,
recruiting an 18-year-old?
You really want to come here? I mean, we don't really want you anyway, but I guess you could come. We'll figure out if you play.
Bring your parents and use us as a third party, you're gone. You're off the team. We're direct.
Some scar tissue built up here among these guys.
Yeah, so obviously they were just sort of making fun of the whole situation until today, when Inside Carolina was the first to report that he had been offered the job. Now, it hasn't been accepted officially yet, to my knowledge. I'm looking at breaking news as we can here, but at least the job is out there from Carolina's purpose. All right, Bill, here you go. You want the operation? We're going to give you the operation, because they are in a position to regain. They want relevancy again in this modern era of intercollegiate athletics where money is a part of it all, and they feel like, well, shoot, if we have Bill, we're going to get the elite of the elite because these guys want to be trained up to get to the league. Why else do you go D1 anyway? Everybody in Division I thinks they can play in the NFL. Whether or not that's a reality or not is, well, it's a crapshoot, really. It's like rolling dice on the table. But the fact is they feel like they can attract the kid who's serious now.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be coached up by Bill, and who knows who he's going to bring in. I imagine that he's going to bring in guys all with NFL ties to be a part of the staff at North Carolina, if this is true. And then you're going to go out and you're going to say, open the doors and say, all right, here you go. I don't think Bill will ever have to go to a couch to visit with an 18-year-old. I'm not sure that'll ever happen, and I don't think that's his intent. This is what I have. You want a pathway to the NFL, come to Carolina. That's it.
Yeah, it's a good point, and you definitely hear him on McAfee kind of pitch that it's gonna be an NFL program in college. So if
exactly,
this is a prep school essentially now.
NFL prep. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
that's a great way to put it. North Carolina is going to be an NFL prep school.
Yeah, and that's, if you want that, that's where you go. I'd still come back to the NFL side of it. I think that's the more interesting part of the story, and I wonder what Bill is hearing through his back channels about his candidacy at the NFL level. I find it really hard to believe that he would pass up on being an NFL coach again for the University of North Carolina.
Which tells me, again, the NFL avenue is closing shut.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because it just sort of speaks to the climate of the NFL coaching carousel, which we'll hit again here in about a month.
And we're gonna hit Black Monday, and I mean, who knows?
Yeah, we're gonna hear about, we're gonna talk a little bit about Greg Bedard's reporting and things like that. So it's relevant to the Patriots, and I think a lot of what these teams are looking for. We talked about this on Unfiltered the other day. It's Ben Johnson. It's the next Sean McVay. It's the next D'Amico Ryans in Houston. It's not a 72-year-old Bill Belichick. It is a 42-year-old whiz kid, right, who is the next Bill Belichick. Like, who was Bill Belichick of the 80s Giants, right? Like, who's that guy? And how do we find that person to be our head coach?
Giants thought they had him in Brian Daboll, didn't they?
Yeah, right. The next, the number one coaching candidate on the market is going to be Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
I am guarantee you that. And Ben Johnson's an offensive guy. He's a younger dude. He's an offensive whiz. Like, that's what teams want. And I don't think it's totally what's the word? I think it's relevant that the way that things went with Mac Jones here in New England, I believe, is really, really relevant. Because if you're a team like the Chicago Bears and you're trying to pair a head coach with a
young quarterback, and you saw what happened in New England, it's kind of like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah, because I think what you worry about with Caleb, first of all, is the fragileness of Caleb Williams.
Sure.
And not to go down the whole road of him crying and hugging his mom and all that kind of stuff. He did do that. But that's not necessarily what I mean. I just mean the way that you have to manage the athlete of today a little bit differently than maybe the athlete of 20 years ago in Tom Brady's case.
So in a sense, he's going to basically reverse the trend. He's been handed all these kids that, for whatever reason have had their hands out. Now he's going to go to the where they come from and try to change the thought process at North Carolina. Son, you want to play in the NFL? We're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
You don't have to come here. You can go anywhere else you want to and grab your bag of money and try to get to the NFL. But I can show you how to get to the NFL. And I think it's a unique perspective. Look, I'm not telling you it's going to work. I'm not sure. But I think it's interesting that North Carolina is apparently at a point where they want desperately to be relevant again in this modern day and age of intercollegiate athletics. And so they're like, let's go right to the source.
Yeah.
Kids want to get to the pros and they want to get paid. All right, well, we're going to pay you what we can pay you here at North Carolina. We're even going to share some revenue with you, which is coming up, as we all know. But at the same time, they want to go to the pros. So let's get a guy from the pros to show them how to get there. It's a unique arrangement if it works.
Yeah, it's interesting because, tie it even more to the Patriots with Drake May. Drake May, in his initial recruitment out of high school, he was the number one quarterback recruit in North Carolina, as you can imagine. Rivals, five-star quarterback prospect, like all the nines. And he originally committed to Alabama. to go play for Nick Saban.
Right.
And that was because the North Carolina program was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster.
Right.
I'm blanking on who their coach was at the time. But they had like a 1-win season in there at some point when Drake was in high school, and it was a joke of a program. Like, to put it bluntly, it just wasn't in a good spot. And so Drake, his father went to North Carolina, his brother went to North Carolina. He's from North Carolina. He wanted to, in his heart of hearts, to be a Tar Heel, but for his football career, it just made no sense for him to go to North Carolina with the state of the program. So he was getting offers from Alabama, Ohio State, USC, and considering all these other schools. And then Mac Brown gets the job at North Carolina. They fire the coach, and Mac Brown gets the job at North Carolina. And Drake flipped his commitment from Alabama back to North Carolina because he felt that it was more solid to go where Mac Brown was. So that program has been trying to chase being more relevant, I would say, in the college football landscape for probably a half a decade now since they brought back Mac Brown.
Yep.
Although it's a basketball school and although it's known for that side for sure, I do think they look at the ACC and see, besides Clemson, like
We should be competing for a title every year in this league.
Why not us?
Right.
And they've been trying to chase that to be more relevant on the football side, and they've had some really good NFL prospects lately.
Sure they have.
Come through that. Obviously, Drake is probably the best, but Sam Howell was a really good college quarterback, and Amarian Hampton, their running back right now, Bryson Nesbitt, their tight end. Like, these guys are NFL caliber prospects. So it's not a complete. It's not like he's going to coach football at Wesleyan, right? Like, he's going to coach football at a school that's in the Power Four.
NFL on CBS just tweeted out North Carolina is nearing a deal to make Bill Belichick to be its next head football coach, according to sources. Nothing has been finalized, but there's a growing sentiment within UNC the deal is close. So there you go.
Yeah, so Adam Schefter just tweeted something similar. So maybe that's what that was from, is an aggregation. So this is Pete Thamel, who's like the Adam Schefter of college football.
Yes, Pete Thamel,
So
Pete's a longtime friend.
North Carolina is working to try to close a deal with Bill Belichick to make the 6-time Super Bowl champion the Tar Heels coach, but sources told ESPN there are still issues that both sides need to work through. I think, we were talking a little bit about this on Unfiltered today, right before we started here. The issues, to me, is about who he wants to bring.
Yeah.
With him.
Yeah.
And
how much North Carolina is willing to afford.
Compensation for those people. Do those people need buyouts at other schools that there are other places they're currently at? So that I would say you are going to get, for better or worse, if you're North Carolina, probably the better, you are going to get the Patriots all-stars of staffs. I think that there's a chance that you see A. McDaniels. I don't know if it's going to be Josh or his brother, but A. McDaniels, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge,
they're all going to be on that staff. They're going to be on that staff.
Yeah, everybody's the band is getting.
You think Burge would leave Bill O'Brien?
I do. I think the band's getting back together at North Carolina.
Wow.
And I think that you're getting all of them.
Wow.
I think you're getting the whole lot. And Patricia's going to run the defense. Ben or Josh McDaniels is going to be
What about
the
his
OC.
son moving from Washington?
Oh, that's true.
Run the defense.
Yeah,
right?
Steve.
What about Steve?
Yeah, that could happen. Maybe Patricia's in like a senior coaching role or something like that instead.
He'd be an associate head coach.
Yeah.
Which they need. You need programs now in college need associate head coach / GMs.
Yeah.
Because they have to deal with NIL, they got to deal with money. They're going to have to deal with paying out revenue, and they're going to have to make tough decisions like hey, we're paying this kid a bag here and he's not producing. So guess what? Psst, you're out. That's the downside to this. Scholarships are not what they used to be. They're just not going to be, which is why this is a very dangerous time for athletes in college athletics because they don't have contracts like they do in the pros.
Right. I think
you go year to year with your scholarship in college now. So if you're going year to year with your scholarship, but I got a scholarship. Right. But the money that you're getting on top of that scholarship may not be there if you're not producing.
Yeah, it's interesting, the aspect of Patricia, too, because his role when he came back to the Patriots after he got fired by the Lions, they were trying to transition him into more of a front office role here in New England. And then when Josh McDaniels leaves, they need an offensive coordinator, and he takes the job. He starts calling plays and running the offense, but he was transitioning into a front office role,
Right, right.
administrative front office role, maybe combination of sort of like Ernie Adams and like a general manager type responsibilities, and that was the vision, and they had a lot of different things that he was involved in. One of them, and I know this reporting is out there, so I'm not like breaking news, was the practice facility that is going on down the street. That's the original plans for that started with Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick, coming up with a concept of what exactly
a facility would look like.
standalone
Yeah.
practice facility would look like. So it would make a lot
Which
of
got
sense.
pushed into overdrive when the NFLPA survey came out and made it public,
Yeah.
and the Patriots are at the bottom of the list.
It would make a lot of sense for Patricia to be in that kind of role for North Carolina, because the offensive coordinator thing with Patricia happened here by mistake. Like that was
It was
not
awful. It was a terrible, egregious error of judgment.
Yeah, that was not supposed to go down like that.
No.
I don't think that they expected McDaniels to leave as quickly as he did when he left, and I don't think they might not even have expected McDaniels to leave at all, frankly.
All right, so you think the band is potentially getting back together, which
Yeah.
may be what they're working out right now as we speak.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about this. Can you imagine George Halas leaving the Chicago Bears to go to Alabama or to go to Missouri or to go to UCLA or to go to Illinois? Let's say Illinois. Let's just stay regional with the whole thing. Could you have foreseen something like that? Or Don Shula to leave Miami to go to Florida State or the University of Miami? Could you have seen that?
I no, and I couldn't see this happening with Bill unless, to me, like, what shocks me about it so much.
Tom Landry going back to his alma mater at Texas.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just that's the significance of this move if it happens.
Yeah, what's shocking to me is two things. One, does he need to coach that badly?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
like,
Why can't
need
you
to-
just roll off into the sunset
Yeah.
and still be thought of as potentially the greatest coach of all time? Forget
Yeah.
football. Forget football. You're going to put him in the coaching pantheon with guys like Wooden. Okay, and name another couple, a bunch of other coaches that in any name a sport, name a great coach. He belongs in that discussion.
100%.
You want to put him on the Mount Rushmore of coaches?
He's on the Mount
Bill
Rushmore.
is on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know if this is just for his own satiation, for his own ego, and we talked about ego being a huge part of this, and this is a driving force.
But isn't it a shot at his ego that it's North Carolina? And like, I don't mean to I'm sorry, and I know the quarterback of the Patriots, it was from North Carolina.
I understand where.
I understand
where you're going with that.
Like,
I
it's
get
not
that.
Alabama, it's not LSU, it's not Georgia.
No,
like,
but I would tell you, and I'm going to try to put myself in Bill's shoes. This will be the only time I probably ever do this, right? But as I look at the collegiate landscape, I'm looking at a state university with relatively unlimited income because it is a state university. It's not a private school. There's a big difference here. They're getting ready to share their share of $22 million of revenue with the athletes because of the whole court issue that's still not yet finalized. So the players are. It's going. What you're doing is you've got pro football, but you've got it on a very structured level. The players can be paid maybe a few $1,000s more depending on who they are and what they do and this kind of that. But there is no multi-year contract to negotiate like there is in the NFL. So the money thing is going to actually take care of itself, if that makes sense. All right?
But what does he have to gain?
He has zero to gain other than personal satisfaction to show the world, I can still coach.
Okay, but I that's the part that I'm just scratching my head about with this. I don't know what he has to gain, because we were just talking about this off the air a little bit. Best case scenario for North Carolina is like they're Colorado, right? Like he brings.
So he's doing what Deion Sanders is doing in Colorado,
right? And totally different personalities. Don't get me wrong, but just in terms of Deion went to Colorado and made Colorado a relevant program, right? Like that was not a relevant football program, and overnight it became a relevant football program. Great, but Colorado's not sniffing the college football playoff, and they have the Heisman finalist frontrunner and maybe the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Actually, they have maybe 2 number 1 overall picks in the draft. If Shador, you want to put him in this conversation, and they're not sniffing the college football playoff, North Carolina's best case scenario is like a 10-win season under Bill Belichick, where maybe they're in the ACC championship game against Clemson, and maybe on a good day they win that ACC championship game and they earn an automatic bid. But like that's such a stretch. And like Drake was in the ACC championship game a couple years ago when he was a true sophomore. He got to the ACC championship game with North Carolina, and they got their doors blown off of them by Clemson. Mm-hmm. In the ACC championship game. So I'm not understanding where, like, what, even if you do a good job down there, it's all relative. It's not like Nick Saban doing a good job at Alabama and winning national championships. And the downside is that he completely falls flat on his face. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I'm just like, why even do this?
Because there is a need for him to prove to himself. I told you, this is ego-driven. You have to have the ego to be in this business. You got to have the ego to maintain a prominent role in this business. That's the only other reason I can come up with. Now, one final thing before we wrap it up and we move on to current things. If you're the Patriots as an organization here overall, and you see Bill Belichick, again, arguably greatest coach of all time, go to the college ranks, are you breathing a sigh of relief?
I am, and look, I'm not speaking on behalf of the organization, so don't get me wrong.
I understand that.
But I totally am, because honestly, it stunk watching Brady go to Tampa Bay and win a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. I have more, as a fan, I definitely have more heartstrings pulled by Brady, I would say, than I do with Bill. And maybe that's...
By the way, I agree with you 110%.
Yeah.
If he's going to go someplace, look, I didn't, oh my God, I can't think of something worse if he had gone to like Buffalo, stayed in the division. That would have been worse. Now, going to Jacksonville, nah.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
having him break Don Shula's record with another team, I think that would have kind of always been just sort of a stick in the craw, if you will, so to speak. It just would have been like, having that marble in your shoe or that rock in your shoe that you can't get rid of, and it would have always been there. But if he's going to the college ranks to do it, I am breathing a little easier now because A, his legacy, whatever it will end up being over time, is secure with New England. And his bust, when he goes into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is definitely going to be about New England and not about the team that he broke Shula's record with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, look, every single time you hear about Tom Brady, you have to call him a 7-time Super Bowl champion, and the 7th isn't here. And that stinks. That stings. That hits you right in the gut, right? So I look at it with Bill the same way, that my fear with Bill, it was that he was going to go to Buffalo, Dallas, Philly.
I wouldn't have minded Dallas so much, because it would have been entertaining to see the clash between him and Jerry Jones.
But you go to my point is, you go to one of these teams that has a ready-made roster.
Yeah.
You're not, Jacksonville, I don't think is that close, right?
Which is... Yeah.
So you go to a team, let's say the Eagles were to fire Sirianni because they flame out in the playoffs.
Right.
They're one and done in the playoffs, and then you hire Bill, and then all of a sudden Bill takes a loaded team that was a couple bounces away from winning a Super Bowl already a couple years ago, and then gets them over the top. Like, to me, that would be a gut punch.
Yeah.
For a Patriot, from a Patriot perspective. But this, whether he succeeds or fails at the college ranks at North Carolina, is irrelevant. Like, it's not the pros. It's not the same thing. It really just doesn't matter.
All right, we're gonna flip the script a little bit here. It's a great story. It's breaking news, and again, if you just tuned in a little bit late, but a report today by Inside Carolina of the 24/7 Sports Network says that Bill Belichick is finalizing the deal to take over as head football coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. We've been surmising what he would do about his staff and things along those lines. NFL on CBS is also reporting the same thing now. Adam Schefter has come out and reported the same thing. So they're trying to work on the nitty-gritty details of probably staff and coaches and how much they're going to pay and what's it going to look like if we give you, total control like he wanted in the NFL and apparently could not get. What's that going to look like? How much money is that going to cost us? So that's where they are with that story. The other big story that I know Unfiltered talked about earlier today, you guys have talked about it as well, had to do with a report in the Boston Sports Journal. And Greg Bedard of BSJ is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We're coming up on 3 o'clock Eastern time right now. He's going to join us at 3:30 because he was the author of this story. Fact of the matter is that what he said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, and we'll let Greg explain it a little bit more based on his findings, that Gerard Mayo, as well as a lot of the players, but Gerard Mayo specifically, is fighting for his job, coaching for his job over these last 4 games. Now, I don't happen to personally believe it. You and I have talked about this on this show. You guys have talked about it on Unfiltered. You've talked about it, I'm sure, on Catch 22 with with Alex. So I believe that there's no way they're dumping on Gerard after just 1 year. I just don't think that the Crafts will do business like that. That being said, I also understand that based on, look, if this thing goes south, and I think this is really the essence of Greg's reporting on BSJ. If this thing goes south and these guys get the crap beat out of them over the last 4 weeks, it's not competitive football, and they end up 3-14, and they're going to solidify one of those top 3 draft picks in the draft. I would tell you that I could see some reevaluation.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I think they're going to fire him. I don't, because I think they want to give him another year. They want to try to, maybe make a few tweaks on the coaching staff. I'm not saying they're going to fire the coordinators. I know that a lot of people feel like that should probably happen. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen here, because I think they feel like if they give Gerard the time to do with it and hopefully the personnel to do with it, the coordinators deserve the same regard. And I don't disagree with that philosophy. I'm not going to be a CEO that's going to come in and hire someone to necessarily be fired. I want it to work. And maybe Mr. Kraft, again, we're supposing here. We don't know. Maybe he's decided, my gut on hiring Gerard, the sport has changed, new information has changed, different things have happened. I don't think you can say, well, I identified this guy 5 years ago to be our head coach. I think that's oversimplifying. Things change so rapidly in the business of professional sports today that I just don't think you can hang your hat on any one reason. You have to basically hang your hat on the fact that you need to be flexible and you need to adjust to the way the sport is actually dictating it to you. You can't tell football how to act, but football can tell the team how to act, and that's basically what's happening with these Patriots. And so maybe we talked about this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week. This is a referendum on the remainder. 2025 starts now.
Yeah.
2025 started last week in the bye week.
Yeah.
And so this is the first game, as far as I'm concerned, of 2025 this week against Arizona. And that's why everybody, including Gerard, is likely coaching for their livelihood. I just wonder how you feel about that overall.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I'd say, in my mind, everybody is always being judged. And that's exactly what Gerard said this morning. Mm-hmm. Whether it's GM, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterback, and this is a business where if you can upgrade at any position, like defensive tackle, if there's a better defensive tackle than the guy that's on your roster, then you are going to try to sign or trade or acquire said defensive tackle. And I think that trickles all the way up to the top with general manager and head coach. And I don't think that Gerard right now is in a position where he's necessarily coaching for his job. I think that's a little bit strong, but there's only questions that people that are truly inside the building. We're like, it's like a core, right? Like there's layers. Like we're not inside the inside layer. We're on the periphery looking in, and the people that are truly inside they're the only ones that can answer: is the program running the way that a Super Bowl caliber program should be run? And what I'm talking about is more like the day-to-day. Mm-hmm. Like, are these guys getting the coaching and getting the game plans and getting, is it a well-oiled machine? Is everything working the way it's supposed to work? Is it looking the way it's supposed to look? Only the Crafts can truly answer that question, and they come from a background right through their ownership with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick and even Pete Carroll, where they know what it looks like when it's supposed to look, the way it's supposed to look, right? Yep. They know when it's good, and I can't answer that question for them. All I can tell you is about the football aspects, and I definitely believe that there are things that he will have to learn from. Like Gerard will have to prove that he has learned from some of these bumps in the road through his rookie year as a head coach. Now that would mean giving him another year to show that he has learned that. But it's hard for me to say because I think going back all the way to January, you knew that you were getting into a situation where the head coach was probably not 100% ready to be the head coach. And if that was
I think has to be. I'm sorry to
No,
jump
you're
in,
fine.
but I was just going to say that has to be at the core of this issue. If anything, and again, I won't speak for the Crafts. I don't pretend to speak for the Crafts. But if anything, there has to have been the discovery at some point in time this season that, you know what, I'm not sure he was ready for this.
Yeah.
This could have been and should have been handled 4 or 5 years ago. They should have sent Gerard out on his own, go be a coordinator someplace, go work under somebody else, go make contacts in the business. And when the time comes for Bill to leave, we want you to contact us first, or if you get another job or head coaching job, come to us first, and we want to be able to to have you back. He should have been able to do that because Bill is such, and this is what I think a lot of people are missing the boat on. Bill is such a controlling figure, in the locker room, in the front office, everything else. I'm not sure how much his assistants really get a chance to grow. His own son went off to the University of Washington to learn how to really be a coordinator. Part of the reason why they didn't give him the job here, lock, stock, and barrel. Okay? So that had to have affected Gerard at some point. If you really wanted Gerard as a potential head coach, you needed to send him off to learn. And the Crafts failed to do that. And I think that's where all of this is kind of stemming from.
Yeah, I don't know if he needed to leave. I think that there probably would have been a world where there was some sort of buffer period, and I just look at it and I can't help but consider some of the options that might be in the carousel this year, and not wonder if those guys are maybe better equipped to do the job. And like I just said about players, if Mac Jones is not getting the job done at quarterback, so they trade him and they draft a new quarterback. And to me, it's the same with everybody on the team in the entire organization. And I just look at this coaching carousel, and I don't know if necessarily they would attract like the Ben Johnsons and like these new up and coming names of the world, but I just wonder if maybe there was another step here. Maybe it was what you're talking about. I know Greg's talked about it too. Him going out underneath Bill's thumb and being a coordinator elsewhere over the last couple of years before taking over as the head coach this season. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was hiring a head coach that you really, really like and making Gerard Mayo the defensive coordinator of the Patriots. And then if that head coach doesn't work out, or if it, whatever that timeline is, Gerard is continues his training and continues to get better and continues to grow, so that maybe in 5 years he's the head coach of the Patriots, or 3 years he's the head coach of the Patriots. I can't help but looking at some of the other options that might be on the market and comparing it, because that's just the reality of the business. It's a results-based business, and you do wonder if you get to this a year from now and we're in the same boat, like you and I are sitting in these exact same chairs a year from now talking about a 3-10 football team, like we're going to just be doing this all over again about this situation.
No, we won't. No, honestly, if this team is 3-10 at this time next year, heads will have already rolled, or at least should have.
Yeah, I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make is like, if you're the Crafts and you already know that something's off with what's going on around here, and something's not right about the way the football program is being run, then you're wasting time.
The one thing that I keep coming back to is, if the Crafts and their other businesses that they have, if they needed to hire a new CEO to run the business, would they have taken somebody with absolutely no experience in that position?
It's a fair point, but I look at it, and I've made this comparison before. I'm a big hoops guy, big Celtics fan. Joe Mazzulla was not ready to be the Celtics head coach when they had to appoint him as interim head coach when the whole Ime Udoka thing went down. But Joe Mazzulla inherited a team that had just been to the NBA Finals. So that gave him the leeway to learn on the job.
Right. Because the talent was there.
Right.
The Patriots don't have the
Right.
talent.
So now it's this double whammy of like you have this green head coach who's learning on the job, and you also have a roster that's not ready to carry him just yet.
I think Gerard Mayo could have sufficiently carried the Kansas City Chiefs.
Probably true, or an equivalent of that.
I think so, because he would have had enough surrounding him, and he could have been exactly what he should have been at that time, as just sort of a CEO overseeing it all.
Yeah.
But here he's got a lot more of the dirty work than he would ever have had done in this situation, and it's a great analogy with Missoula and the Celtics, because I agree. I think that's where he would have had success had the roster been up to snuff. But the problem is that, unfortunately for Bill Belichick, all the greatness that we've talked about him already today, he left the cupboard kind of bare.
Yeah.
And the draft the last few years was crappy.
Yeah.
And the free agents were brought in, not good, not the best in the world. One or two hits here and there, mostly misses. So, context here. And he's been put, the thought process I think was fine. I'm okay with that, again, but you got to surround him with the right people. They haven't done that. And I'm talking about both from a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint.
Yeah, I would say the biggest criticism for me that I have this season of Gerard Mayo, just to come to his defense a little bit, the press conference stuff does not bother me one way or another. If that's your thing, then to go over his press conferences with a fine-tooth comb and every word that he says that you don't like becomes a topic on Felger and Mazin, fine.
There's no better point than to use Bill Belichick for that regard.
Yeah.
Because Bill was not in it to win the press conference.
Yeah.
So what if Gerard, has to backtrack or, speaks out of turn or doesn't really seem sure of himself or, whatever. He's not in it to win the press conference. He's in this to win football games. Now, could his indecisiveness on the field and on the sideline be causing him to not win football games? If you want to get to the heart of the matter, that's the heart of the matter. We've seen him look a little like, even though, I don't know if he's looked like it, but he's acted like a deer in headlights in some instances, and he's made some poor choices when it comes to decisions on the field. All right, that's fine. Maybe he's playing analytics. Maybe he's doing that. And you know how I feel about nerds already anyway. I don't have much use for them. I'm okay with you as a nerd if you need to be. I'm all right with that.
Sometimes.
But that's about as much nerd as I can take here. All right? So I would just tell you, though, that we're going about this wrong. And so, we need to figure out if we can fix the surrounding part around Gerard. I think that's the more easily fixable thing here because of the cap space and the money that you have and the free agents available and certainly the ability to draft. We've really only given Elliott Wolf, and I would tell you last year was not good outside of Drake May. He needs an opportunity to show he can handle his job. This is the year. And if we are, as you said a little bit earlier, if we are sitting here next year at 3-10 talking about the same stuff, heads should rightfully roll.
Yeah. I think that, just to go back to my biggest criticism is nothing to do with press conferences or anything like that. My biggest criticism right now is the state of the Patriots defense and how that has completely cratered.
Yep.
Analytically, to go nerd on you for a second, right now the Patriots statistically have the 32nd ranked defense in DVOA. They are the worst
dead last
defense in the NFL.
And they went from 10th last year?
9th to 32nd. So I look at Gerard and I see a defensive-minded coach. I see a former linebacker turned defensive coordinator or co-defensive coordinator, whatever you want to call him with Steve over the last couple of years. And I say this is your side of the ball. And so when people say, maybe he needs to hire a senior defensive assistant like Ben McAdoo is on the offensive side of the ball to help DeMarcus Covington. Gerard is supposed to help DeMarcus Covington. That is his side of the football.
Should be. Supposed to be.
The senior defensive assistant on the Patriots coaching staff should be Gerard Mayo. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the defense, and when I watch their defense right now, and I thought he said it this morning and he was spot on, they look like 11 guys on an island. They don't look like 11 guys playing on a string. They don't play defense together. They're not tied and tuned together. So the plays that they make on defense, it's individuals making a splash here or there, right? It's Christian Gonzalez jumping a crossing route. It's Jelani Tavai getting into a passing lane. It's Keon White getting to the quarterback. But it's not a cohesive unit. It doesn't play together.
Doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason to what the defense wants to do.
Yeah, it's 11 guys flying around all on their own.
Yeah.
And that's not how you play good football. That's not good, fundamentally sound, technically defensive football. That's not how, especially I would say on that side of the ball, that's not how it works.
Nope.
And the guy that is supposed to be quality controlling that side of the ball and keeping those core fundamentals that they had in the Belichick era with that defense is Gerard. So if he's not holding up the defensive side of the ball anymore, and other people that aren't me are critiquing him for sort of the CEO elements, the game management and the press conferences and like all that kind of stuff, then I'm just struggling. Like I'm struggling to make a case.
Yep.
Right? Because if he was, there's a lot of great coaches that coach defense. I think the best example, just for Gerard, the best comp is DeMeco Ryans in Houston, just because two former linebackers, young guys, head coaches in the NFL. DeMeco Ryans calls the Houston Texans defense. He runs the Texans defense. Bobby Slowick runs the offense, and DeMeco Ryans runs the defense. So I can point and say this is DeMeco Ryans' imprint on this team, is how they play defense. And how they get after the quarterback, number one pass rush in the NFL, and how they have guys like that are emerging on that side of the football. That's DeMeco Ryans. I said it from the beginning. I just wish that Gerard Mayo took more of that approach, where you're not an experienced coach to be having your hand in every single pile.
He's trying, ironically, to be Bill when he's not Bill.
No one's Bill. And so Bill could just pull from 50 years of NFL coaching experience of defense, offense, special teams, personnel, right? Draft, like all these different elements of what it goes into running a football team. I never wanted Gerard to be the CEO. I always wanted him to be the defensive coordinator and then hire an experienced offensive coordinator. And this is one thing I'll push back a little bit on some of Paul's shows, as we like to call him. Alex Van Pelt is an experienced offensive coordinator. He's not an experienced play caller, but he's an experienced offensive coordinator. He's been an offensive coordinator in the league for a decade, right? He's got plenty of experience.
And we should clarify here, there is a difference between offensive coordinator and play caller.
Right.
Even though everybody thinks, well, the offensive coordinator calls the plays. Not all the time.
So he hired, in my mind, a guy that's been around the block on the offensive side of the ball. Both played in the league, played quarterback in the NFL, has coached offense for about 2 decades, has been in the offensive coordinator chair. I think that hire has more or less worked out. Drake May is on. An upward trajectory.
Honestly, look, we can be very critical and nitpick over all of this stuff. We used to do this in our old Nitpick Tuesday shows, right, Maureen? When we were,
it would be nice to be doing that right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's when the team was good, so we're nitpicking all the little things. But I don't think nitpicking Alex Van Pelt is really what we should be doing, because he had to learn as a play caller, and he also had to learn he had to adjust to the talent that he had, and we can all admit the talent has been inconsistent at best this year. So let's look at the entire picture. I don't think you can lay really the blame for any lack of success on Alex Van Pelt. Can you argue with this thing or that thing? Of course, we all can. This job, you're in this position to be scrutinized, and you're going to be when you're in the public eye like that. And I'm sure those guys are big boys and they can take it. And same thing goes with DeMarcus Covington. I would tell you that of late, DeMarcus and the defense have had the struggles, whereas Alex Van Pelt and the offense have not had as many struggles, because he has Drake May to coach up and to teach, and we can see that Drake has the talent to do that. We don't have that on the defensive side of the ball. We have Christian Gonzalez, but because of the position, the nature of the position that he plays, he's not really in a position to affect much of anything else, when the quarterback affects everything else on the offense.
Yeah, it just feels to me like the move for Gerard was, I'm really good at defense. That's my side of the ball. That's my area of expertise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it rolling on defense. Like, we had a pretty good defense last year. We're going to get Gonzalez back. We're going to get Marcus Jones, not as good as Christian Gonzalez, but we're going to get some guys back on the defense side of the ball that were out to injuries last year. And I'm going to make sure that the 9th rated defense in DVOA in 2023 is the 9th rated defense again, at least in 2024, if not better. I mean, we were talking before the season, national media, I don't think she'll mind me saying this, like Mina Kimes thought that they were going to be like a top 5, top 10 defense in the NFL.
Right.
I was with her. Like, we did not see this coming. And they've had some injuries, and Juwan Bentley goes down, and Barmore misses
which
most
is why
of
at the beginning of the year I thought 5 or 6 wins was very realistic for this team.
But still, they had injuries last year too. They lost guys last year. I just, that has always been the thing to me, is like, why did he make the decision to try to go the CEO route instead of, I'm going to focus on my side of the ball. I'm going to make sure that we're still in line on defense.
Turn the offense over to somebody else.
Turn the offense over to Alex Van Pelt or whoever the hire was. Mm-hmm. And then all the head coaching stuff, like we'll worry about that in-game stuff, and we'll have an Evan Rothstein or something like that to help me out with that. And now that's why the in-game stuff gets over scrutinized, because like that's what he's doing on the sideline, is running the clock at the end of the half, or when to call timeouts, or when to challenge plays. Like, when you're the CEO head coach, like that's what people are going to point to as your job. Like that's what you're supposed to be doing. So
it's why people in the stadium yell and scream when they think he should challenge a play.
Yeah.
And it takes almost the crowd in Foxborough to encourage him to do that, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. So I never loved the setup, I guess is what I'm getting at to begin with. In that respect, I never loved it, and now we're seeing it go through. So again, like I said, only the Crafts can answer whether or not behind the scenes it's moving in the right direction. Like, we can determine it based off of the film and the wins and losses and all that kind of stuff, but it's a vibe. Like, it's a thing that you just kind of have to be there for, that we are not privy to. So they can only answer that question, but it's an interesting conversation because I do look at this coming up coaching carousel. You're going to have Mike Vrabel, who I think is a really
still available,
really strong candidate.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson is I think will take a job this cycle. There's going to be some options out there. And, as Bedard reported, as Greg reported, like, you can't help but
kick the tires. You got to think about it because you have a chance to better your organization. And I think that was also the impetus for his story, is largely, hey, the Patriots need to be considering these things if they're really interested in getting back to where they were, or getting back close to where they were just a few short years ago.
And maybe the answer is that we like who we have. Maybe they determine that. And I would also just say in Gerard's defense, because I say both sides of the story, like, the one thing I would say for Gerard is that there is a nice comp, and he's brought up the comp before, and that is Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell was 3-13-1 in his first season with the Detroit Lions. They were not a good football team. They came here, and he went for it on 4th down 6 times, and they went 0 for 6 and got blown out by Bailey Zappi in the Patriots, like 29-0.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were not a good football team in Dan Campbell's first season.
That seems like that was like a decade ago, doesn't it?
Yeah. Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, similarly to DeMarcus Covington, took on a lot of water early on in his tenure as the defensive coordinator in Detroit. Now, Dan Campbell's the darling of the NFL. The Detroit Lions are the best team in football. Aaron Glenn's going to be a head coaching candidate this carousel, along with Ben Johnson, their other coordinator. Like, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. Like, all these things have now come up Detroit. So if you're looking for a path for Gerard Mayo to go from worst to first type of thing, the Detroit Lions are staring at you, right? Like, that's a path that exists out there. And to Dan Campbell's credit and to Aaron Glenn's credit, like, those guys got better on the job. They learned on the job, and they improved, and they got better at it on the job. And maybe Gerard is is one of those guys too. Maybe he can
Didn't
do that
Dan
too.
Campbell that 3-13-1 season? Didn't he win like 2 of his last 3 or 2 of his last?
Yeah,
4?
they were 3-3 in their
3
last
and 3
6.
in their last 6.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that I think was part of the impetus of the article that Bedard wrote on BSJ.
Yeah.
That the Patriots want to see. He's saying the Patriots, whoever the Patriots are, upstairs.
Yeah.
Okay, they want to see that kind of effort, if not that kind of result, but they want to see hard-fought, stuff that matters, football, over these last 4 games. Otherwise, they actually might consider making a switch.
Yeah.
That's the crux of the story.
It's a fair thing to expect, and we've talked about it a lot, like the draft pick versus momentum and trying to build through the future. I definitely fall on even if they're competitive losses to Buffalo. Like if they lose, they go up to Buffalo next week, it's going to be freezing cold. I can't wait. And they lose
Go eat some wings.
Yeah, right. They let's say they lose a 30-27 game to Buffalo, where their Drake May is toe to toe with Josh Allen, and maybe Josh Allen leads a game-winning drive at the end.
Is that acceptable?
And I would sit here and say that's great. Like that showed me
Step
something.
in the right direction, right?
Right. That showed me some marbles. That showed me some championship medal.
The word is cojones.
So yeah, cojones. That showed me something. That showed me that this team is headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so give me a couple of those games. The Chargers here. That's going to be the Chargers. The Chargers are better now at Jim Harbaugh. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers are a warm weather dome football team that's going to come here and play in the freezing cold in a couple of weeks.
Right.
So can you be the tougher, more disciplined, better prepared for the elements football team than a Chargers team that still has some warts? Like if you do those types of things, I think you head into 2025 with some momentum. And if you have the 8th overall pick instead of the 3rd overall pick, in this draft in particular, I do not think that that's going to matter. This is not a quarterback draft for the Patriots. They're not a quarterback team. And it's not particularly one of those drafts where you have like a Myles Garrett or like a Von Miller where it's like we have to come away with this guy. It's not a great draft at the top. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think it's a great draft. And so the difference between the player you're going to get at 3 and the player that you're going to get 8,
Probably not much.
I don't think it's going to be that much.
Probably not much.
No.
I'm sitting here snickering to myself because it's amazing that, after all these years and everything we've been through, we're now comparing ourselves to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, what a time to be alive, right?
It gets to my original point here is that you need to learn to adjust to the game, okay? You've got to learn to adjust to the game. The game doesn't adjust to you. You adjust to the game. This is what the sport dictates. Teams rise and fall, like the drop of a mercury outside, on a thermometer.
Yeah.
So if you don't learn to adjust, you're going to get trampled. And the Patriots right now are trying to avoid being trampled.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and I do wonder, just to finish out the Lions thing, I do wonder if some of the conservativeness of his in-game decisions, 4th down, like when to go for it, when not to go for it, playing for field goals before halftime, like those types of things. I do wonder if some of this reporting by Greg is made to light a fire under their butts a little bit, to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more pedal to the metal. And
maybe somebody fed him some information in order to do that.
Because when you're an underdog and you go into these games, and you're a 6.5 point underdog on Sunday in Arizona, you're 3-10. If it's a 4th and 2 from the 12-yard line, like what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
Right. Like
go for the
it.
touchdown.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. That part. That I also want to see that as well. A little more aggressiveness here because you don't have anything to lose. And before I let you go, we got to spend at least 2 minutes on the Cardinal game.
Yes.
Coming off the bye week, the Cardinals are staggering a bit themselves.
Yeah.
And they're still fighting mathematically for a playoff spot. So I find this a little bit of intrigue. You're going to likely get their best shot this week.
Yeah, you probably will. I think the other side of it is, their loss last week to Seattle, for all intents and purposes, lost them the division. Mm-hmm. Like they really have no path now to win the division in the NFC West, and they have about, I think ESPN has them at an 8% chance to make the playoffs. So they're pretty much dead.
They're hanging on the as we call it, the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, they're teetering. Like they're pretty much dead. So
are they ready to roll over and play dead?
Right.
We don't know which way they're going to
Right.
go.
And
The Patriots
I'm
can
not-
dictate that, by the way.
100%, and I'm not the biggest Jonathan Gannon guy either, to be honest with you. So I don't know where that, speaking about programs, I don't know where that program is headed right now either. Now, they have more talent than you. There's no doubt about that. They have more star power, I should say, than you. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., James Conner, Trey McBride, Buda Baker on the defensive side of the ball. These are household names. These are names people know. These are names that people draft in fantasy football, right? That's
Sure.
those types of things. So they have that name recognition and that star power. But I look at this as a winnable game. I do. I think offensively for the Patriots, this is another team that's going to play a lot of zone coverage. They're going to play a lot of soft zone against Drake May. They're going to bring pressure from different places, all these fire zones and creepers and things like that defensive coordinators run nowadays. So he's going to have to decipher through some of that a little bit. But it's not all that different from what he saw against the Colts, the Rams. So they're going to play these soft zones. There's going to be opportunities to move the ball through the 20s. The biggest question for the Patriots, the 5th-ranked red zone defense in the league in Arizona. So can you finish drives? And to go back to our point about 4th down, you might need 4 downs. Right?
And hope that you get, 2 out of 4.
Yeah, it's a really good red zone defense. You're not a good red zone offense. The Patriots are 30th in red zone offense. The Cardinals are 5th in red zone defense. So
not
it's
a good matchup.
Strength against weakness, right? So you might need to go for it on 4th down. You might need to be a little bit more aggressive inside the 20. I would love to see you have this guy that's got a great arm. When you get to the fringe red zone, when you get to the 25, throw some into the end zone from outside the red zone and skip the red zone altogether.
Yeah.
Those types of things I think are in play this week. And I look at the Cardinals offense. To me, the biggest worry in this game on either side of the football is the Cardinals' run game against the Patriots' run defense, because James Conner is a downhill runner. They are a downhill run team. You'll love it. They're a gap team.
Yep.
Let's pull a guard and let's get him
And
up on a
go.
linebacker.
Yeah, I love that kind of football.
Yeah, and
I really
James
do.
Conner is
You're
right down your throat.
Yep.
Right, that's what they're going to do. So are the Patriots going to be able to stand up to that?
Which is why I don't see this as a winnable game.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They don't run Kyler quite as much as they used to, just to preserve him as the franchise quarterback. But James Conner has had some huge games this year, 200-plus rushing games as a team. And you also do have to worry about Kyler, running as well.
And they haven't played him well in the past.
Yeah.
They just haven't.
Yeah. If you can get it to 3rd down against Kyler, the one sort of film/analytics crossover with Kyler is he doesn't handle blitz pressure well. So you can bring the house against him. He wants to move around back there. So you add guys into the rush. You can kind of trap them, right? You can get multiple athletes, DBs, safeties.
That worries me, though.
You can chase
that just worries me because when you rush, our guys have had a tendency long to over rush.
Yeah.
And he steps into the pocket, then shoots up the middle and turns a sack into a 30-yard gain.
It's a fear, but looking at the stats, he is the worst quarterback in the league when teams bring 6 or more rushers. Dead last in the EPA per dropback.
Then I'm bringing the house.
So
I would
we got to get him into those positions, right? You got to get him into 3rd and long.
But that means you got to make sure that you're taking care of Connor on 1st and 2nd down primarily, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language.
Okay, so there you go.
There you go.
So that's what we have to look forward to this week. Opportunity, as you said, I just don't know if the way that they run, with the personalities involved, the athletes involved, I don't know that this is necessarily, I could be wrong. If you don't shoot yourself in the foot, with a lot of needless penalties, to that end, we might have some reinforcements arrive this weekend on the offensive line.
Yeah. We'll see if Cole Strange, where he fits in. I'm not quite sure yet if he's going to play center because, I asked Gerard this morning about the continuity with Ben Brown and Drake May and the quarterback center exchange and how important that can be. I'm wary of changing that. Maybe you can ask Greg about it because I'm more interested of his perspective. That's such a big deal, the snap exchange exchange, the communication, like trusting your center is such a big part, I feel, of just getting the playoff. Like just getting everybody pointed in the right direction and getting the snap off and all that kind of stuff is big. And for the most part, it's been pretty clean with Ben Brown.
I appreciate your willingness to stick around and talk all these issues today.
Anytime.
So, you'd think a 3-10 team with 4 games left in the season is nothing to talk about.
We talk about today.
Are you serious? Really?
Plenty.
These are the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
There's always something to talk about.
Yes.
Thanks, Ev.
Yeah,
All right.
anytime.
Yep. Have a good trip to Arizona.
Thank you.
All right. Stay warm if you can, right? All right. Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots, Toyota. Let's go places. And our program brought to you by easy to drink, easy to enjoy Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. 855-PATS-500 is the toll-free telephone number. You know that. 855-PATS-500. We are open and available to talk to you. You want to send us an email, you can certainly do that. Podcasts at patriots.com. You can also hit me up on X at JRBroadcaster. If you have a question you'd want to go that way, or a comment to make, or a story to share, or whatever you like, I'm in tune on that. I want to take some time now to bring in the aforementioned Greg Bedard, who, of course, owns, operates, covers the Patriots for Boston Sports Journal. Greg, I really appreciate your taking just a few minutes today, because you're the one that kind of stirred a little bit of a hornet's nest around here and getting us to consider, wow, could they really let Gerard Mayo go? And so we spent most of the first hour of the program talking about the pros and cons of what you had to report. And so I'm just curious to know where your approach is coming from here. Do you really feel like letting him go is a succinct possibility, or is this all predicated on how the Patriots play over the last 4 weeks before they get into that process of determining he's easy enough to keep around?
Yeah, John. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Look, at this point, with 4 games to play, I would say that it's in the unlikely to highly unlikely category as far as the prospect of letting Gerard Mayo go after a year. But I do think, from the people that I've talked to, that there's a keen interest in seeing how the team finishes the season, and they are going up against better competition. I think they have the 31st or 32nd pass schedule as far as DVOA to this point, and the rest of the year I think it's either 2 or number 1. So they're taking a big step up in the competition, even with the Cardinals this week, who have lost 3 games in a row. They've still done a lot of good things this season, and they're well coached, and they have some talent. But yes, do I think it's a possibility? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think that the players are playing hard. I think hopefully the coaches use the bye week to correct a few things, and hopefully they are very competitive down the stretch. You just the prospect of them possibly getting blown out in the final 4 games, if that happens, then I do think all options are on the table. But as we stand here right now, I would say it's unlikely. I think that Gerard Mayo has done enough, at least, to get another season. But again, that's why they play 17 games. We can see what happens in the final month.
Sure, of course. And I basically have kind of thought what you have reported all along. Some of it public, most of it private. That look, everybody is evaluated on a week-to-week basis. You have to be in professional sports because the sport changes so rapidly. And if you're not changing with it, then you're left behind and you're on to the next. In this particular regard, though, I guess it was just the starkness to see it in print, to be honest with you, that, hey, 4 games left to play. If they get blown out by 4 games, everything's on the table. And I would tell you, yeah, it should be on the table. Now, do I think that they're going to pull the trigger? Nope. I don't. I think they're going to give him and Elliott Wolf both another year to try to correct this. And if we're still sitting here, and Evan and I were just talking about this, if we're still sitting here next year and this team is 3-10, we're talking about the same things, heads will roll. And they rightfully should, because you've had 2 years now and you've made no gains. In fact, you could arguably say you've taken a step backwards in 2 years. And that's not the direction this team wants to go. Is it possible, Greg, that maybe maybe this is a way to light a fire under these guys to let them know that, hey, don't get too comfortable here.
It could be. It wouldn't be the first time in my long career, John, where somebody has used me to send a message to coaches or players. So
I thought not.
That's certainly possible. But I do think there are a bunch of interesting dynamics this time around. Say just like a normal, coaching hire as far as Gerard Mayo about the succession plan. They didn't go through a full search. They passed on Mike Vrabel last year. Mm-hmm. He's still out there, amazingly. He could wind up with the Jets. I also think there may be some dynamic with the higher-ups in this organization as far as, I think there was a sentiment. There was a sentiment among upper management with the Patriots to perhaps move on from Bill Belichick after the Matt Patricia year.
Yep.
And Robert decided to stay the course, and things got worse.
Yep.
Do they look at that decision and say, we can't make that mistake again? There's the whole Drake May dynamic. Is this the right thing for him right now? After getting a whole look, and again, this would be 17 games, getting a whole season at Gerard Mayo, do they think he has it? Do they think he will grow into the role? Do they have second thoughts about that? I think there are a bunch of interesting dynamics at play, but I think that Gerard Mayo can make this a moot point if he gets this team to play well in the final 4 games, against some stiff competition.
Sure. The Vrabel issue. Do you feel like that this is going to come back and present pressure in any form or fashion with him still being out here? And if he goes, or if the Jets start really getting serious and sniffing around about him coming in to New York, could there be some sort of a move maybe to appeal to make the move in advance of the Jets making a move? I mean, I can't think of anything more disastrous for the Patriots right now than to have Mike Vrabel go coach in New York.
I know the prospect. I think it does, John. I think it does put a little bit more pressure on the situation, especially if Mike, who I know ownership thinks very highly of, and not only as a person and former player, but his abilities as a coach, which are proven. And are you going to let that pass twice, and then possibly see him twice a year, for the next decade, or do you say, Gerard it was going to take too long for him to grow in this role. He was too much of a neophyte when we coached him. We can't afford to be late on this again like we were with Bill. We're going to press forward and we're going to make a change. I mean, I do think that's possible, and I think Vrabel does complicate things a little bit.
If not Vrabel, would there be any chance at all of getting in on one of the hot up-and-comers? And I'm looking directly at the Detroit Lions in this particular instance. I don't know. Could that also be a factor here?
I think absolutely. And I think, we all know that Robert's very sentimental. Mm-hmm. Do we think that Jonathan is the same way? I would say most people who know Jonathan would say he's more analytical and a little bit more of a critical thinker. And it doesn't take a football genius to realize that after this season, the Patriots' job, if it was open with Drake May as your franchise quarterback, no doubt, $120 million in cap space, a top 3 pick in all likelihood, and sort of a clean slate. And plus, ownership is really good. They're going to build a new football-only facility.
Yep.
I mean, to me, compared to all the other potential openings, the Patriots are by far would be the most enticing proposition for anybody. So, if you're talking about a Ben Johnson or a Mike Vrabel or who have you, I mean, compared to some of the other, especially ownership situations in different places, team presidents and general managers hanging over your head, this would be extremely tempting, and I also think that factors into the Kraft's thinking when everything is all said and done.
Sure, and I'm wondering how much that NFLPA vote, which got the Patriots, to lit the fire under them to build this football-only facility, how much of a factor really does that enter? It seems to me, wow, they've done this in a short amount of time. It's only been a year, because it was a year ago where the Patriots thought of it to not be one of the more attractive jobs in the NFL. Now we're talking, it's come this far, this long. Somebody has to be given credit for that. Who gets the credit for that?
Well, I mean, I guess you would say Bill Belichick in a way, because he completely drained the cupboard and didn't spend that much money and has pushed for a football-only facility for a long time. But I think this is more of a case of the Patriots just bottoming out than anybody should get credit for that. But certainly ownership stepping forward and saying we're going to fix these things doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so they're just committing to something they probably knew they needed to commit to already anyway, in an effort to help the new people, the new kids on the block, so to speak, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Then very quickly about the game this week against Arizona. You've got, it's a kind of an interesting scenario here. You got a team that's hanging by the skin of its teeth in the playoff run, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, against a team that needs to win and put its best foot forward in order potentially to save jobs around this place. So I wouldn't normally think of a game, somebody 6-7, another team 3-10, as to be a big game, but this one does have some intrigue to it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the Cardinals. I have a lot of respect for their coaching out there. I think Gannon's excellent at what he does on the defensive side of the ball. Even last year when they were really struggling, I thought they really played hard and showed a lot. Drew Pitzik, the offensive coordinator, does a lot of good things. Kyler Murray's struggling, right now at this point, but. A guy like James Conner is out there, and there's a lot of talent, and they have a lot to play for. And coming off a 3-game losing streak, this is they have to win this game to have any hopes of the playoffs. And I think they're going to sort of be licking their chops to get right in this game. And it's on the Patriots coming off a bye, getting a little bit of rest, getting a mental rest. It's on them to be ready to go, because I do think the Cardinals are going to bring it on Sunday.
Greg, I appreciate the time. Thanks for it today, and good luck, baby. We'll keep reading.
Sounds good. Thanks, bud.
You got it. Greg Bedard. Greg at Greg A. Bedard, Bedard on X, if you want to follow him there. Like I said, he's the one that wrote the story on Boston Sports Journal about the fact that this last 4 games could easily be a referendum in the not only the history but the future of Gerard Mayo here in New England. So, and it starts this week against the Arizona Cardinals. And fair or not, that is the business of pro football. So. Be that as it may, I'm left here kind of scratching my head a little bit because, as I said earlier with Evan, I don't see the Patriots giving up the ghost on Gerard. I just find that to be distasteful, if anything else. But then again, this business is full of distasteful moves all the time. And if they're not going the direction that they feel they need to go in order to eventually be successful, or they can't arrive at that conclusion that we don't think we're going in the right direction, then yeah, they absolutely have the right, if not the duty, to stop it and correct it. It's their property, it's our property. The fans are the ones that pay the freight for the tickets and everything else that goes on. And yeah, and the fans here certainly over a number of years have been spoiled with the Super Bowls and all the championships and used to winning, and now it's gone south again. And I would tell you that this is just a byproduct of playing and being a fan and being a part of the National Football League. Everybody goes up and down like the thermometer with the temperatures outside. There will come a point in time where, the Kansas City Chiefs, who are, without question right now, still up in the hierarchy of the NFL, but the Detroit Lions now are charging hard. And, and then we could see, if they are usurped in some form or fashion, Kansas City by Detroit or somebody else for the next few years, we'll probably see that team, remain competitive for 3, 4, 5 years. It's just the way that the league has set itself up. and the way that you can, reestablish yourself and the way that you can compensate yourself with free agency through the draft, you still have to have individuals that have ability to recognize talent, to recognize availability, to recognize value. That was one of the things that Bill Belichick did so incredibly well, is he understood value. This is how the Patriots were able to build in the first place. So if you really want to remain where you were, get back to where you were if you're New England, then you have to remember how this team was built, and that is on value. Now, maybe that value has changed. Maybe the way to obtain or even determine that value has changed. I would argue that it has, just because free agency being as prevalent as it is, and you can literally change a roster overnight if you're picking the right guys. And that's kind of where the Patriots are in the middle right now. They have not picked the right guys. Let's all be honest here. They have not done that through the draft. They certainly have not done that recently, for the most part, through free agency. It is on the scouting staff and Elliott Wolf to do just that this year. Otherwise, all bets are off. All bets should be off, and you probably need to reevaluate getting back to the way you were. You probably have to figure out an entirely new plan altogether. And that may be part of the reason that we're juggling these things right now between we know how we won before. Can we do it again? Or we need to just forget about that and move on to a different direction and a different way to do things. Russell Baxter is going to join us, as he always does, for a look around the NFL at some things. I believe the NFL announced today that they're going to Berlin next year in 2025 for regular season games. So we'll talk a little about that, and we'll get his thoughts on the Patriots and Arizona coming up again in just a couple of moments. But I want to get to the phones as well and thank our guys for hanging on through the conversations here. Patty and Agawam. You still there, Patty?
What is going on, John?
Hey, baby. How you doing?
Doing all right.
What do you think about all this noise today?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, I just don't see how, for the good of your future franchise quarterback, which, I mean, Drake May looks like he has all the intangibles and all the skills to be that guy. I mean, why would you want to start shuffling your coaching staff around after the first year?
Yeah, I don't think you want to. I really don't. And I find it that to be a little far-fetched. But if this team lays an egg, and I'll just leave it at that, over these last 4 games, and they are non-competitive, then they should take a look. And this is where I will actually agree with Greg Bedard and his premise in the story that he wrote. Listen, if you're going to lay down and finish, 3-14, and you're not competitive, you need to take a look at everything. You have to question, why you brought in the people that you brought in to begin with if you're really interested in winning. And you are in a position to make big advances back and get closer to where you were because of the cap space that you have and the draft that you have.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. My thing is, unless Gerard has completely lost the room, or like all of the guys that are out there that are starting, that are busting their butt, they tune them out. I don't see it happening. Like, I think they, regardless of whether they win or lose any or all of these next 4 games, I think they're going to be competitive in every single one of them, especially the Buffalo games, because, I mean, that's 5 years in a row. They're the kings of the division. I expect them to come out and try and, prove a point that, like, we're here, we're not going anywhere. We don't care if you beat us, we're gonna try and kick your ass too at the same time, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I just don't see it playing out that way. Just my opinion. I could be 100% wrong. They could go out and lay an egg in all these last 4 games. But it's just a gut feeling, John. Like, I think these guys like playing for Mayo. Like, we saw how earlier in the season when he called the team soft, how the media kind of took that and ran with it and tried to make it out to be kind of bigger than what it was. But to a man, I think everyone in the locker room, especially the defense, that week or after that week's game, said, yeah, he was right. We played soft.
Well, yeah, and that's the issue. If they play soft and they get, thumped over these last 4 weeks, then have they done enough to warrant another opportunity, even with arguably improved personnel or coaching tweaks or whatever? And I would tell you that, I'm not sure that the answer to that is yes, regardless of, it's a bad look. No, it's about winning. We've had this discussion before this season. This is about winning, and winning now in the NFL. You don't get a whole lot of grace period. You get a year, maybe two, and if you're not competitive after a couple of years of laying down and trying to rebuild, then you've got issues about the direction that you're following. It's because the way that the sport is built and the way the sport has established things. They've done this on purpose. They want parity, P-A-R-I-T-Y, okay? That's what the National Football League wants. They've got it. Sometimes it's P-A-R-O-D-Y. That's what we get. And I think the Patriots are a P-A-R-O-D-Y of what they once were. But they're going to have to use the P-A-R-I-T-Y to get back to where they were. The question is, are they doing that to the best of their ability? And if they fall flat and we don't see it from the coaching staff this week or the next week or the week after that or the last week, then I would argue nope. And it's time to think seriously. I'd agree with Greg in this premise. It is time to take a good hard look at this. Do I think that will happen? I still don't. But it should be on the table. And that really, I think, is the crux of what Boston Sports Journal was reporting.
Yeah, I gotcha. And one kind of crazy thing, too, John, and I'll get off after this.
Sure.
I'll throw a quick prediction out, and I'll get off.
Shoot, what do you think?
At this point is, one of the things that coming into the year that Gerard Mayo said, like, they wanted their identity to be is they wanted to be a tough football team. They wanted to run the ball, stop the run, and cover kicks. And I think that have not done a good job in all of them. I know there's been injuries on defense. I know you're starting a whole new offensive system with zone blocking instead of gap blocking. But in all three instances, I think you can't check any one of those. And I think they're a team without an identity right now. You know what I mean? Their identity, and I'm not talking about Drake May. Like, Drake May's the face of the franchise. Mm-hmm. He's not the Patriots' overall identity. They don't have one right now, and they need to establish one, like you said, before the end of next year. Or else, I think anything's on the table. I'm going to say the Cardinals are going to win because it's, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I would like to think that with the week off, the Patriots are going to come out and have a good game plan. But I think if they're planning on doing what I think they're going to do, which is, start getting some of these younger guys, your Caden Wallace, your Cole Strange back into the mix of things, maybe Javon Baker, maybe these final four games are a chance to get a little bit more aggressive on fourth down, which you and Evan were talking about earlier too. What do you got to lose at this point in the season? Just start.
You got nothing to lose, and that's what we want to see, and I think that's what maybe even ownership wants to see. Again, I won't speak for them directly, but I would just tell you, look, everybody wants to see that. How competitive are you? Are you going to take chances here? Are you going to try to learn? Look, let's turn these games into a learning laboratory. It's better than practicing. Let's go out and play. Let's see how we measure against a team that arguably is a playoff caliber team in the Cardinals. That's what you have this week. Whether they make it or not really is a moot point. They're closer to where the Patriots want to be than the Patriots are. So let's go out and attack it. I think the game on Sunday boils down to a couple of things, and we talked a little about it earlier. Number one, Patriots have to figure out a way to stand James Conner up. That's the number one thing. Number two, they've got to make sure that, Kyler Murray has beaten them with his feet before. He can't beat them with his feet this time. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that and whether or not, they can set the edge on the rush. You hear that term all the time. But are they going to be able to set the edge and not let him get out of the pocket? Are they going to bring, 6 guys and make his life miserable, on obvious passing downs if they're able to, hold on first and second down? Because, again, he's the worst quarterback in the league, according to the metrics, on third down when you're rushing 6 or more guys. So are the Patriots going to take advantage of that? And then the other issue is on the other side of the coin. All of a sudden, Arizona's pass rush is non-existent. Especially over these 3 games that they've lost in a row coming into this one. So I would tell you, last week in Seattle, I saw this number earlier today. Geno Smith for Seattle was only pressured on 17% of his dropbacks. That's part of the reason why the Seahawks won the game. So if Drake May is only pressured on 17% of his dropbacks. I tell you, I think the Patriots have at least a puncher's chance, if not a better puncher's chance. But they have to do the other things. They got to hold James Conner, number one. They got to contain Kyler Murray, number two. And, yeah, they can't shoot themselves in the foot with false starts and holdings. It seems like every time the Patriots got a gain of 15 yards last week, when they played 2 weeks ago, there was a hold somewhere. It was bringing it back and putting them in second and long. It was so frustrating to watch, and I know it was for fans everywhere. But that's the issue, and that's at the crux of the whole, and I've used that word a lot, crux today. But that's at the issue of, can Gerard Mayo coach? Because these guys don't know how to not hold or how to get away with it. I know there's holding on every play in the NFL. You certainly can make that argument. They don't know how to get away with it. Somebody needs to teach them how to do that. That's the issue. So they don't get all these big plays. When they get big plays, they don't get them called back. There's got to be more discipline involved. And if there isn't more discipline, get the hell out, find a spot on the bench, and I'm going to put somebody else in who will at least stand his ground. That's really it. And there's not that kind of delineation. It doesn't seem like there's any repercussion for, the errors, mental or otherwise, that are made out on the field. And that goes to coaching. That goes to coaching.
100%. Yeah, that made me sick to my stomach when they get first and goal from the 2 and ended up first and goal from the 22 two plays later.
Unbelievable.
But that's all I got, Johnny.
Unbelievable.
I'll talk to you next week, buddy, all right?
Patty, thanks for the time, bud. Appreciate you. Always. Patty in Agawam. The one and only Eldred in North Carolina. Eldred.
How you doing there, Mr. Legend?
It's all good. What do you think about Bill Belichick being a Tar Heel?
Well, if you come in and be a Tar Heel, I'm going to go up there and open up a bottle of, let's see, if you like Hennessy or whatever, and just have a little talk with him. And be NFL you.
I would love to be a fly on that wall.
But that's like putting Scrooge in Christmas in Santa Claus toy factory with all the kids.
Yep.
Why they make the toys.
Yep.
That's going to be a very interesting sight to see.
Well, they're still apparently working on the deal, last I saw. So it's certainly a possibility within the realm of possibility. They have to work out a lot of different things, I think, for it to happen. But, that tells me that, his prospects for coaching in the NFL are waning, and B, he really wants to coach. I mean, he's not doing this for Shula's record, which I find a little surprising, to be honest. He's doing it because he feels like he still has something to offer. That also could mean that his ego is completely, off the hook, and he needs this to feed his ego. I don't know. I tell you, you have to have an ego to be in this game already anyway. So I think really that's kind of a moot point. He's got the ego already anyway. So what's he doing it for at age 72? Because he wants to coach, and he wants to, perhaps kind of help turn this thing around. We're already seeing college football change. It's becoming literally a feeding program now for the NFL, and he's trying to bring it from the NFL perspective, knowing what the NFL is looking for. He's going to apply it at North Carolina if he gets this job, and then you got a pipeline. And I think that's what college football at the high major level is going to become. It's going to become a minor league, if you will, a proving ground, a feeding ground
NFL.
For the NFL. Forget the XFL or the UFL as they call it now. It's going to be college football.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to tell Evan, I'm going to disagree with him. Even though North Carolina ain't had too many good drafts that come out, but there have been some. Like Russell Wilson, he was there for a little while, then he left, went to Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. But there've been a few, besides that. But these kids, they got some good pipeline down here. Matter of fact, he didn't go to North Carolina, but he's from North Carolina. Like Gilmore and like Patterson, Cordell.
Yep.
They're all from around this area, not too far down, like Rock Hill and, But it's, like I said, it's a good little place, little spot. And I hope he does well. But I just want to see how he's going to coach. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. You already know how he's going to coach. I know he's
going to coach like a drill sergeant.
Well, maybe, and are there going to be 18 and 19-year-old kids that want to come play for that? And I would tell you that, gosh, based on what I've seen out of 18 and 19-year-olds, hell, like the ones that I teach in college every day, I would tell you that I don't know how many of those kids are left today. 20 years ago, I would have said differently. But now, in this day and age of entitlement, I don't know how many are going to be there. It'll be an interesting experiment. I'll give it to you that way.
Yeah, it would be. And I'm one, like I said, I'm not a Tar Heel fan. I got a bunch of friends that are, and Panther fans, and and they always pull me down. Well, y'all with us now. I'm like, I want to hear that, but you're right.
Well, so will you go watch the Tar Heels play if he's the coach?
Yes, I'll watch him. And just matter of fact, I want to watch the first game. And if my boy Kendrick gets some tickets, and if I'm off on that Saturday, well, no, I want to take that Saturday off.
Okay.
I'm gonna go up there and tailgate and watch the game with him.
Well, see,
I'm not a Tar Heel fan. I'm a Florida State guy.
I knew that. I remember that. But I was, hell, you're in North Carolina, so I'm wondering if the lure, the draw of Bill Belichick would bring you there.
Yeah, I'll go see. Like I said, I'll go see one of the games and see how he does. And I don't wish no bad luck on him. I'm like you. He's 72, got money, got property. You got all these TV shows. You got a little young girlfriend. What else you got to prove, bro? You got 6 I mean, really, you got 8, really.
Well, but Evan and I were talking about that too. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, you're right. I mean, really, why would you feel the need to go do this?
Well, yeah, why? I don't get it.
I don't get it
because you ain't got to prove nothing to nobody.
Hey, Eldred, I just my cell phone here just rang. I didn't recognize the number, but it came from North Carolina. You think? You think somebody's trying to tell me something?
It might.
I'm no word of a lie. No word of a lie. Number I didn't recognize, and I look below and it says North Carolina. So
might be Bill.
I don't know.
And again, I don't think it is.
I don't know. Hey, just wanted to bring you up to date on the negotiations.
That'd be straight.
Why not, baby? It's the playbook, baby.
Yes, sir.
That's exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about the last 4 games? What do you think? Should Gerard Mayo's job be on the line over these last 4 games?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm going to say no, not because of Gerard Mayo. Anybody, if they brought Ben Johnson there from last year, or if they brought Aaron Glenn, or whoever they brought, no. My blame is that Elliott Wolf and Bill, the talent. I don't care how close you try, competitive you be, but if you ain't got the horses, you just ain't got the horses, and we don't have the horses.
I figured.
I've been saying that for over a decade.
You've been saying that for forever, as long as I've known you almost.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You got to have some athletes, and I'm tired of people saying, well, when we was winning, we didn't have those. Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
And when we was losing, you had them.
Mm-hmm.
Bill just didn't get them. I ain't talking about just wide receivers. I'm talking about pass rushers, linebackers, tackles, tight ends. He had a shot. You even had a quarterback. And I want to tell everybody, remember when my boy from Baltimore was about to get drafted? We had that pick, 32. He traded to Baltimore for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Brady texted him and said, I'm looking for Lamar. I'm looking forward to show you how to, and you train with me. Because he know they're going to be his successor.
Yeah.
But we traded to Baltimore.
Yeah.
And then that would have been the successor plan, but that's Bill and anybody else, And I don't think he's going to get it right. But if I was Gerard, after these 4 games, I'm going to get rid of Tyquan Underwood and whoever my other wide receiver coach is, and I'm going to try to get Sean Jefferson or somebody else a little younger, maybe better, because did not turn out. I know they ain't got most of the talent, but something about them guys running routes. I mean, you train them every day. You practice with them.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got them. They can't run the right route yet.
I think it's
or
it's fair to see some tweaks made in the coaching staff. Yes, that's fair.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to do that. Covington, defensive wise, I'm like Evan. Gerard should have been on that side, and he should have been doing his thing.
Yep.
And Covington should be assistant coach or whatever,
That's
assistant defensive coach.
Agreed.
And then keep it going from there. But my whole blame is the front office GM. If I'm Gerard this year, I'm pounding for the best guy on the draft board, which everybody knows Travis is Hunter. Gonna be him. If you can't get him, I'm gonna get the next best guy. And those tackles, I'm gonna try to get if I can get one of them, whatever. If I can't, I'm gonna get the next best guy that helps me out on defense or offense.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly, you want the offense, But I'm beating the table for them. And in free agency, I'm going to sort my linebacker crew and my pass rush on that in free agency.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
So I'm going to throw money at them or whatever.
Yep. Need
But
to.
I don't, I'm just, it's just a GM. And during, the Packer way, during that. I want to say the other word, but I can't. We're on the radio.
Okay.
If there's 101 out there saying this guy is the top receiver, and then you got a couple more that's down, but you got one down in the lower fifth, we can get him. He just like that. You need to have your head examined.
Yeah. Got to take the guy. Got to take the guy.
Yeah,
right?
you got to take the guy. You got to take. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah,
You got to take the guy.
Yeah.
And
frankly, if they had taken the guy, I think they wouldn't be in the position where they're in now. And that's where I'll agree with you.
No. Yeah, I tell you what, 219. They took DK. That's your wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
220. If they who's that guy? Walker. Theodore Walker. That I think they got for the Giants, outside linebacker, defensive pass rusher. Could have got him.
Yep.
Or you could have got McDuffie from Kansas City.
Sure.
But no, he went down and got anywhere else.
Right.
They was there, and if you didn't want them, he had A.J. Brown. You had,
Right.
Debo Samuel,
Mm-hmm.
which was already in here until he tweeted it out. Then they didn't have nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, you had some talent. You had it. They just didn't draft.
Nope.
I think 6th round and 4th round, they're just as good as the first round. No, it's the reason why you got first round, stuck at 3rd, and a 6th and a 7th, and an unrestricted free agent. It's the reason why you that.
Right. For sure.
And I admit, some of them guys do better some of the first round,
Mm-hmm.
but that's very rarely.
Yep.
But
well, I figured you would react the way that you did. It's more of a personnel issue than a Mayo issue, and frankly, I tend to agree. He needs to have what I would call a full deck of cards in order to play 52 card pickup. Right? He's got to have a full deck of cards. If he's not playing with all the cards, it's not really fair to judge him accordingly compared to others.
Well, that's right, because then you play with the kitty cards, and you ain't got nobody else. Old Maid, and you got a 52 deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's doing that.
Yep.
And then, like I said, I'm going back to Elliott Wolf. I don't care if last year was his first draft. No, it wasn't. A couple years he's been with Bill for the last 4 or 5
Sure.
years.
Yeah. No, it was his first to basically call the shots, if you will. He contributed on a lot of other ones, which frankly doesn't help him much here.
Bill.
It doesn't help him much
because I think he pushing the same guys in Bill's. Bill, we should get this.
Yeah.
And Coach Strange.
Yeah.
Coach Strange to me remind me of Tyquan Underwood.
Yeah.
He's a bust.
Yeah.
So having him come back, and I wouldn't let him take Brown's spot for nothing, especially when they exchange and Drake May is comfortable with him.
Right.
I wouldn't do that.
All right.
And we saw what he did at left guard. He wasn't good.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'd trade him. I've got to get him off the team next year. I'd trade him. That was me.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you as
All
always.
right, thank you. Have a good one, Mr. Legend. Always good talking to you, sir.
You too, bud. Thank you. Be careful out there. This reminder, Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots and proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And Pats Nation, the most nail-biting action film of the season, Carry On, starring Taron Egerton, Sophia Carson, and Jason Bateman, touches down on Netflix December 13th, just in time for the holidays. That's just a couple of days away. Only liquids allowed. Blood, sweat, and tears. Catch Carry On December 13th, only on Netflix.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
It has to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
Nothing going on today. Nothing at all going on today. So, Russell, you just picked a hell of a time to jump in here.
Well, I would say so. And I'm going to be a fascinating half hour. And listen, if I were you, I'd save Elcher's recording. You don't even have to do a show the entire summer.
No, just put Eldred on repeat. Yeah, that's basically right.
Already mapped out 2025's off season.
Yep.
And you're all set. I'm going to try and get his picks for weeks 1 and week 2 next year.
I know. Hey, just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on the reports that the ball is in Bill Belichick's court, so to speak? We're going to mix sports metaphors here, and potentially to be the new head coach of the University of North Carolina. What are your thoughts?
It kind of came out of the blue, and that is not a North Carolina pun, by the way.
Right, Tar Heel Blue. Yep.
But I understand it, and I've met Bill Belichick once. I think it's pretty well known that he is a student of the game, and maybe the best student ever. His coaching style, which some people have criticized in the latter years. Although I will hang on the fact that they were a playoff team, a couple of years ago. And listen, you don't have runs like the Patriots have. All these teams that have had great dynasties, a lot of them have had major droughts afterwards. Okay, especially when you lose an ordinary player like Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I hate hearing the quote unquote game has passed him by because, he was the game for so long. And if you're a young, and here's what I've noticed over the last few years in the pros. I can't speak for the college, John. I've noticed, and listen, there's always exceptions. I've noticed a willingness for players wanting to play for veteran coaches so they can learn the game better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know. Bill might have picked up a few things in his umpteenth years in the league. If I remember right, he goes back as far as the mid-'70s with the Broncos, I think, as a linebackers coach. If I remember right. I might be botching that, but he's been in the league an awful long time. So he can teach you a lot of different things. And I've always insisted that, Tom Brady's not Tom Brady without Bill Belichick, and vice versa.
Right.
Of course. So it's a little bit of a curveball, I'd say. But you look around this league, and I don't know what's more exciting now: college recruiting or free agency in the NFL.
It's really recruiting. So to say that Bill Belichick, he wouldn't be able to handle, sitting on an 18-year-old's couch in the living room with his parents, well, it's a little more advanced than that in the NFL. You're whining and dining. I don't know that Bill is actually doing that whining and dining, but it's still the same principle. You still have to convince people that your program, whether it's the NFL or the college ranks, your program is good enough for them to consider and offer to come play.
Right.
It's still the same principle.
Right. And you look at, listen, you have a 12-team college playoff.
Yep.
You have some teams in there, and I'm not the biggest college aficionado in terms of knowing the teams and stuff, but I'm sure most of us, or those who cover college football, certainly had Indiana and SMU.
Yeah, before the year started.
In the college playoff.
Right?
Okay.
Right.
Maybe the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah.
But not the college football. So that game is changing as well, and perhaps he looks at that as a whole new challenge.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah, and you can't argue the fact that if he wants a challenge for himself or for his career or whatever. As I've said many times before, this is an ego-driven business. You have to have an ego in order to be successful because that's what keeps you going. When otherwise, most normal people or most, let's just say, regular people would look at this and say, "What the hell am I doing this for? I'm out." And
correct me if I'm wrong, and it's a little different set of circumstances. Okay.
Yeah.
Bill Walsh returned to college after he
did
retired from the National Football League.
He did, and that's one thing we failed to mention today. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, Bill Walsh. I'm trying to think how he did. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't listen when you
wait. Didn't Lou Holtz do the same thing after he left the Jets?
Oh, of course he did. Yeah.
And he had most of his success in the college ranks. Definitely most of his success in the college ranks.
Listen, I don't have to tell you this. If you're a coach and you love the game and you want to teach people the game, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to you could wind up doing it on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So anybody knocking this, and we know who the usual suspects are who are knocking this, maybe because they didn't have the story, okay? That always happens as well. But it's going to be interesting to watch. Oh, by the way, let me think of something here. Let me give you a more modern example of a guy coaching in college and then coaching in the pros and then coaching in college and now coaching in the pros. How's Jim Harbaugh doing this year?
Yeah, there's one that we kind of scuffed over too, right?
Well, because the people who scuff over them do it intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not a scuffer.
I'm not?
Okay.
Okay. Well.
You're not. Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your credibility is something I hold very dear.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So, but it's like, are you watching the total landscape of the game of football? It's changed so much now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Think about when Bill, and again, I think Bill goes back to the 70s. Okay. When Bill was in the league, I'll probably check it afterwards. Let's say he was in the league in 1976, okay?
Yep.
His first year.
Yep.
There were 26 teams in the league. There were only 4 teams per conference that made playoffs. I'm sorry, there are 28 teams in the league. In 76, the Buccaneers and the Seahawks joined.
Mm-hmm.
That was their first year. Then we went to 2 years later, in 1778, we went to a 16-game schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have 17 games. Now we have 14 playoff teams after going from 8 to 10 to 12 to 14. Okay, now we have 32 teams. So much. In fact, when Bill was coaching in the mid-70s, there was no professional team in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Now there is. So, I don't know. Maybe he's just going to hang around with the Tar Heels and peeking on the Panthers every once in a while. I don't know. So, which I don't think is going to happen because I think Dave Canales has actually done a really good job the second half of the season with that team.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see if he can actually put it together. I mean, I'd personally be pulling for him just because I've always had such great respect for his, results and issues and everything that he accomplished here over, a period of time. I wonder if it's sustainable. I wonder if this is going to be a snapshot of what the future of, college sports is going to be. Have we already turned that corner? I mean, there's a lot of different things going on here. So at any rate, I wanted to throw that out there to you simply because it's obviously significant news today. The other piece that I wanted to ask you about briefly before we jump into a couple of games here, the fact that the NFL announced that Berlin is going to host its first NFL regular season game next year. And we know Germany is one of those spots that they're all keen to get into, and they're going to play the first game in Berlin, Germany. What are your thoughts on expanding a little bit further?
I love it. And I have loved this international thing for more than, and I know I've talked to you about this before. The reason I like these international games is it's not about, for me, growing the product.
Sure.
Okay? We're in an era now that you could live anywhere and watch an NFL game. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But these young men who knows how many of them have traveled the world. Hey, we're going to Germany. Hey, we're going to London. I always thought that was like the neatest thing, is to be able to experience. And I wish, now it's a little different, John, because it used to be if you played in London, you were automatically off the following week. And that doesn't necessarily hold up anymore. Okay, if you look around at the scheduling and so on, you don't necessarily get the bye. Okay? Hey, we're going to London. Why don't we stay a few extra days? Maybe I'll bring my parents. Maybe I'll bring my family. Maybe I'll bring my wife and kids.
Yep.
What a nice listen, when I was at ESPN, okay, I got the opportunity to go to the Pro Bowl a couple of times. We would do weekly shows from Hawaii. Now, Hawaii in February is just as good as Hawaii in August, okay? Hawaii is Hawaii. And after the week was over, never been to Hawaii the first time, obviously, stayed a couple of extra days. Take advantage of that, because a lot of people don't get that advantage. And especially young people, like right out of college, now in their professional gig, and it's like, hey, we're going to play a game in Mexico. We're going to play a game, and who knows? Listen, you'll remember they played in a preseason game, and it was 1995. I remember, because it was Terrell Davis's rookie year, and he made it big. they played a preseason game in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
What a great time and a great opportunity for these men and women and families and stuff like that to travel, do some traveling they may not have been able to do or maybe not even been able to afford.
Sure.
And learn about the rest of the world.
Well, it's an awesome time in that regard. I'm kind of glad.
Right. And besides, correct me if I'm wrong, Berlin had 2 top hits. Take My Breath Away, and No More Words.
I knew there's exactly No More Words is the one I remember mostly.
Okay.
I knew there would be a pop reference here, so that's
Yeah,
that was pop culture reference.
Hey, listen, I'm a pop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And therefore you should deliver. That's right. Hey, we've got I got what I think I counted today 6 games that has some all have some intrigue to them this weekend, which means, of course, that the schedule makers have done the right thing in
Right.
these late season matchups, which is great. But you got Dolphins, Texans, Colts at Broncos, Bills at Lions, which listen, I'm going to pay for because I will watch because I'm hoping that's the Super Bowl matchup. You got Steelers playing at the Eagles, you got Buccaneers playing at the Chargers, and you got Packers playing at Seahawks with postseason clear implications in every single matchup, and maybe even some elimination matches along the way. So that's a pretty good Sunday of football watching.
Well, I would say so. And if you look at the matchups, and obviously Indianapolis and Denver's, and the Chargers both are 8-5. Denver has into the playoffs, and they played in Super Bowl 50, by the way.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is hanging around. They obviously going to need some help and so on to get past those other clubs. But what I found intriguing about the schedule, and you mentioned the 3 games that really caught my eye, was not only potential great games. One of them, an outside Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah.
Buccaneers Chargers.
Oh, that one too.
That's a long
Yeah.
shot.
Well, I guess it could. Sure, it could happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
A realistic Super Bowl matchup, Lions Bills.
Yeah. Sure.
And a sleeper Super Bowl matchup, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Right.
Now, I don't know how prophetic the schedule makers really were, because I didn't know if you noticed this, John. Bucks, Chargers, Steelers, Eagles, Lions, Bills are all on at the same time, 4:25 Eastern time.
How about that? By the way, the Patriots are also a 4:25 kickoff. So, for Patriots fans, it'd be like, yeah, there'll be some serious channel surfing going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I think there's like 6 later games this week. Of course,
Yeah.
we're in the final 4 weeks of the season. There are no more bye weeks. So full slate's the way to go. But Green Bay, Seattle has gotten their act. I was looking at something that I found was with the Packers. Okay, the Packers are 9-4, and obviously are, one of the better teams in the league. Do you realize who Green Bay has lost to this year, John?
Right off the top of my head, no. They're 9-4. So
right, Philadelphia,
yeah.
Detroit twice,
Okay.
and Minnesota.
Well, there you go. All contenders.
Those 3 teams alone are 34-5.
There you go. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But you never know what you're going to get with Seattle. They've been, they're like Coney Island, the roller coaster.
Very, very true.
You're right. So, I mean, they were 3-0, and right now they're 3-0, and then in the middle they were 1-5. So, but all those games you brought up are absolutely outstanding, and they are going to go a long way toward what we're going to see down the stretch, because they all have. Look at Tampa. Tampa has rebounded from that 4-game losing streak with Mike Evans banged up and Chris Godwin out and et cetera, et cetera. They're now in first place all by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kirk Cousins, I don't know if he's thinking of going to another team, but he is certainly throwing the ball to another team on a consistent basis. 0 touchdown passes and 8 picks in the last 4 games.
Wow. That's staggering to even actually consider, right?
There are bookies that haven't had 8 picks in the last 4 games.
Badunch. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Of course.
Did we lose him?
Buffalo. Oh, by the
there
way,
is.
Buffalo, Detroit. Just so you know,
Yeah.
the two highest scoring teams in the league.
Right, which is why that stands to me to be, maybe the most entertaining game of the weekend, all things
Which
being
means
equal.
it's got 10-7 written all over it.
Right, that's probably the way it'll end up.
Well, listen, we saw, here's a number for you for people who are into such things. Okay.
Yeah.
The Bills have played 4 teams from the NFC this year. They're 3-1. They lost to the Rams last week.
Okay. Yep.
In their 4 games versus the NFC, they've scored 142 points.
Wow, in 4 games.
Okay, now the Lions are 4-0 against the AFC. In their 4 games, they scored 154 points.
That's yeah. Listen, that's why I had to bring it up, man. I'm more interested in that game probably than any other else, and that's including including ours, by the way.
Yeah, and I think, John, that's going to be the game the country is really, really going to be fascinated with, because obviously the Lions have caught everyone's attention. Okay, and not forget, they haven't lost since week 2.
Right.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
They're in the middle of shit. You know they've won 10 or more games 2 years in a row. Okay, this team's been around since the 30s.
Right,
they've never done that before.
And never done it before. I know. That's why it's such an easy route. I mean, to root for both of these teams, to be there to go against each other to finally one of the teams is going to win their first Super Bowl. I mean, that's an easy one to root for. That's low hanging fruit, is what that is.
Absolutely. And by the way, if the Lions win on Sunday, franchise has never won 13 games in a year.
How about that? There you go.
They are doing things and we see this every once in a while where a team just puts up unbelievable numbers and it just all clicks for them.
Right.
And so on. It's funny because they're just kind of like a higher scoring version of the Chiefs. Okay? The Chiefs in fact, they're a really higher scoring version of the Chiefs.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
They have scored 100. Let me do the math. Let's see. Okay. They've scored 109 more points than the Chiefs this year.
Mm.
But they both have the same record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they've actually given up fewer points than the Chiefs,
mm-hmm.
which may surprise a lot of people.
Yeah. So. Doesn't surprise me. No. That's a good football team.
You could see it coming last year. I mean, they won they hadn't won playoff games since '91. They won 2 playoff games. This building a crescendo, and it's going to be interesting to see how it. And now, let's put it this way: who would ever thought it? The Lions are now having detractors calling them lucky.
Well, just like Kansas City did, and just like the Patriots did.
Right, but the Lions. Okay? The Lions, who haven't won a title since 1957, now all of a sudden they're lucky. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you, anybody in their right mind, you must have never watched football. They never saw a quarterback stumble and fall on his knee and get off a handoff and claim that man was down.
Right.
That had to be one of the most asinine things I've heard thrown out there from last Thursday night's game. Of course the play is alive. This is NFL. This is not you're down in college. So,
Yep, it's not.
Where have we gone wrong, John?
Russell, if I had the answer to that one, I would have fixed it a long time ago.
Well, call Eldridge. He knows. Come on.
Yep, totally. Thank you, buddy, for the time today.
You're welcome. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week. We got some teams that can wrap up playoff berths, division titles, and so on. And yet, if Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay are all winning, can you imagine Minnesota? I'll leave it at this. Minnesota's 11-2.
Yep.
They've won 6 in a row, and they can't gain any ground.
I know.
In the division.
That's right. It's time to push pedal to metal. That's it, right there, especially where they're concerned. Thanks, Bud. I appreciate you as always.
You got it, sir. Talk to you next week.
You got it. The one and only Russell Baxter, Bax Football Guru, on X. We are out of time in the program. My thanks to Russell. My thanks to Evan. My thanks to Greg Bedard from Boston Sports Journal. My thanks to you for listening. My thanks to Maureen for taking care of it all. Don't forget, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. So Patriots and Arizona Cardinals, it's a 4:25 Eastern Time kickoff on Sunday. Let's see what kind of effort is there. Is this competitive? Are the Patriots just going through the motions? Which team is going to show up on either side of the field on Sunday? And then, of course, we'll talk about it next week. Same Pat's time, same Pat's channel next Wednesday. We'll recap Arizona. We'll look ahead to, oh my gosh, they finally get a chance to play Buffalo this late in the year, and they're playing the Bills for the first time. That'll be on the agenda for next week for sure. See you then.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.